Hello, this is Dr. Richard Fleming, and today is Thursday, September 3rd, 2020. During the last several months, I've been watching as a tremendous number of individuals have been struggling with freedom of speech over their concerns and issues with COVID-19 and the handling of this pandemic by those in federal and state governments. One of the primary problems seems to be the distribution of information and freedom of speech. And while there's a lot of confusion about what constitutes freedom of speech and when different components of the federal and state and local governments can interject in that freedom of speech, I thought it might be good to do a brief history lesson. On the 4th of July, 1776, the founders of this country established the Declaration of Independence. Many of you may be unfamiliar with where those documents come from. They were essentially plagiarized documents, that is to say, almost verbatim writing, from two sources. One from the mid-1600s, where the English people were frustrated with King Charles and attempted to explain to him how frustrated they were with the King of England at that time, 100 years before the Revolutionary War of the United States. The other two-thirds of of the Declaration of Independence comes from Belgium documents, from Flemish documents, almost verbatim, declaring the rights that people should have and the suffrage under a king that needs to require the people to address the injustices to move forward. Following the Declaration of Independence, the United States struggled to get footing in the world and to come together as a unified body. On the 12th of June, 1787, the colonists ratified the Articles of Confederation. Those articles turned out to be a dismal failure, primarily because it prevented the President of the United States from ordering troops from one state of the Confederacy into another area. A confederation, by the way, is a collection of groups, so please don't get this confused with the war between the states or the Civil War that occurred 100 years later. That's merely the reason why the term Confederate was used. With Washington being unable, as President of the United States or Commander-in-Chief of the United States, not even the United States at that time, technically, to get troops moved from one area to another, it was clear that the Articles of Confederation were a dismal failure. The founding fathers met and decided to try to redo the Articles, and in their frustration realized that there was no way to redo the Articles and make them livable for the people. So in 1788, the founding fathers struck a deal. They established the United States Constitution, a federalist society which gave the federal government total power over the people in an effort to try to bring the states together and allow General Washington to command troops from one area to the other. Part of the agreement that occurred at that time was an acceptance that the rights of the people would be surrendered contingent upon the return of those rights at a later date and time. Some of the initial returns of those rights occurred on December 15, 1791, when the first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution, collectively called the Bill of Rights, were established. Freedom of speech and religion and the right to bear arms, all of the first 10 amendments to the Constitution have to do with citizens' rights to the federal government, not each other. In reading the First Amendment, which we've heard much about in these recent days, it states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. A redress of grievances is the right to make a complaint or seek the assistance of one's government without fear of punishment or reprisal. So the First Amendment to the United States specifically states that U.S. citizens have a right to call upon the federal government to redress the wrongs or grievances which that government itself is a part of. This videotape is a request by myself to any law firms, particularly constitutional law firms, that would like to assist me in petitioning the federal government of the United States, both the executive branch and the legislative branch, to address COVID-19 and to explain to us why, with more than 3 trillion American tax dollars paid out for this fiasco of a response to this pandemic, why the federal branch of the United States, both legislative and executive, have not demanded of the agencies that we pay and fund, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, the National Institute of Health, the Centers for Disease Control, the Department of Health and Human Services, and the Public Health Services, why these agencies have not been required to address the problem of COVID-19 effectively. This is now the 9th month of 2020. There has been no information disseminated by these groups that demonstrates an effort to find treatments for COVID-19. There have been no efforts that have shown measurement of actual treatment outcomes by these agencies. There has been no effort to provide data to support emergency use authorization of remdesivir, of convalescent plasma, or of vaccines. There has been no effort by these agencies to objectively evaluate the multiple treatments that have been recommended by physicians and scientists, not only in the United States, but around the world. This is a petition by myself to any constitutional law groups who are willing to provide their time and energy without cost, pro bono, to address this grievance of the United States for the citizens of the United States, with myself as the petitioner, in the federal courts of the United States. I look forward to hearing back from you. I look forward to hearing back from you not only for myself, but for the citizens of the United States, for yourself, for your children, and your grandchildren. Alternatively, the surrendering of our First Amendment right and not demanding that our government be held accountable and the agencies that I just mentioned be held accountable to the American people is a relinquishment of the First Amendment of the United States, something which the Founding Fathers thought important enough not only to restore our rights of, but made it the very First Amendment to return our rights to the American people.